Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Monday, December the 4th, 2023. Hope you are all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. And do we have a jam-packed show for each and every single one of you? I see Jeff Gullidge, Babes and Waves, Cyrus Lowry, Jonathan Lee, John Edwards, Sir Big Spurs, Travie, what's going on? Peyton Smith, Ethan K, Jacob. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Cameron Blassingame as well. Also, those in our Discord, head over to the TDC Questions channel, the TDC Questions channel, to be sure your questions are answered there. Guys, again, like I mentioned, what a show we have for you today. Of course, guys, in just a minute or so, we're going to kick things off with our good friend Chris Doering of SEC Network. But we're talking college football playoff ranking reactions. We're talking SEC championship. We're talking Florida State. Did they get snubbed? A lot to get into. Also, the transfer portal madness has officially gotten underway. The portal is officially open, although really, over the last week or so, right, we've seen the portal cause chaos. The portal officially opened today. So, again, I'll give my full thoughts on that. Also, guys, we've got an exciting week. South Carolina is undefeated in men's basketball. They will take on Clemson on Wednesday, who is also undefeated. But, guys, like I mentioned, in the college football world, bowl season is upon us. The bowl games are set. But the big talking point of the day, the college football playoff rankings that were released yesterday. Florida State is out. Alabama is in after taking down Georgia on Saturday. Again, lots to get into, guys. We're on a normal schedule this week, noon to 2, Monday through Friday. Of course, stay tuned for updates because, of course, with the holiday upcoming, Christmas, New Year's, all that good stuff, there will be some things changing. There will be changes to the normal schedule with bowl games as well. So, again, be sure you stay tuned for all of that. Like I mentioned, guys, he's going to go ahead. We're going to go and kick things off. Our good friend, he joins us every single week, every single Monday. He is one of the best in the business when it comes to talking all things, not just SEC, but college football as well. Our good friend, Chris Doering of SEC Network, joins the show once again. Chris, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. I'm a little sad that we're here at this point of the season, but I'm also very happy. I'm looking forward to a rest, man. I'm exhausted after the season and that weekend in Atlanta specifically.
It is a full-on sprint, Chris, certainly. Really from SEC media days until this point. So if there's anybody who deserves to take a breather, it is you, Chris Doering. So it is well-deserved, well-earned.
Chris, a lot of it is self-inflicted, too. You know, if I actually abided by my bedtime and didn't get caught up trying to see everybody that's in – it feels so much like SEC media days. It's like a bookend to the season, going to Nashville this year and then having the championship game in Atlanta. Just so much fun to catch up with everybody and get a chance to celebrate what was a great year in the SEC.
Well, Chris, let's talk about that game that took place on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Alabama Crimson Tide. A large portion of my show, Chris, today is going to be eating crow because I was wrong about this Alabama team. I was wrong about Nick Saban. I was wrong about his coaching staff. Heck, I was wrong about Jalen Milroe. And I was cautious going in that game, picked a 3-point Georgia victory. I didn't necessarily see the blowout incoming. I talked to so many folks that were picking Georgia by double digits, and I just kept thinking to myself, feels scary, right? This feels like a scary moment to be going into a game like this and doubting Nick Saban and his team. And they certainly made us eat that crow on Saturday, a 27-24 win. Your initial takeaways from what was a huge victory for the Alabama Crimson Tide over Kirby Smart and Georgia?
Yeah. Well, we can go back and talk about the season in totality in a minute, but I agree. I was of the same mindset as you were on every one of those points you just talked about, whether it was expectations from the preseason, how I thought they were playing in the month of September, what I projected that to look like for the rest of the year, and then specifically in this ball game. But I left Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday evening thinking, why in the hell would I possibly have picked Georgia to beat Alabama, knowing the history of these two teams meeting one another with these two head coaches, knowing how comfortable Nick Saban is, how successful he is in that building and that city in general, in those types of ball games. very disappointed in myself from not learning a lesson in 2021 when it was the exact same setup. It was everybody talking about Georgia. It was Alabama being overlooked and, in some people's opinions, disrespected. They were 6-point underdogs, and yet we all wanted to jump on the Georgia bandwagon. I, like you, picked them to win a close one. I thought it was going to be 31-30. Not quite as explosive on offense as I expected. Maybe one of the most surprising things to me, though, Chris, was in the fourth quarter when Georgia cut the game to 3. Alabama needed a big drive. They went right down the field running the football. I thought that the way the game played out with Alabama being the bully physically on both lines of scrimmage, imposing their will upon Georgia, which was not something we had seen at any point in the season, really was shocking to me, but it was also a great illustration of how far this team has come from that game against Texas, where they were the ones that were getting bullied by the opposing offensive and defensive lines.
Chris, you mentioned the physicality, and I want to go there. And like you said, it's so impressive to think what Eric Wolford's offensive line was just a couple weeks ago, a month ago. I mean, they were getting bullied in the trenches, like you mentioned. They could not protect the quarterback. They're one of the worst in the SEC in regards to sacks, and it felt like in a lot of occasions it was weird seeing Alabama be the second most physical team on the field, or even seeing it be even, because we're so used to seeing the Crimson Tide push their opponents around. I mean, just continue to speak to, like, what growth and evolution did you see in the trenches? Because it's one thing to improve as the season goes and pick on Kentucky and pick on some others, but when you make Georgia look the way they did, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes we get caught up in talking about physicality as it relates to the lines of scrimmage, which is certainly applicable. We talk about the SEC being a line of scrimmage league, but they were physical in every aspect of the game. I thought one of the real things that stood out to me earlier in the season as I watched Alabama's secondary was how physical they are, how willing they are to come up and run support and tackle. You don't see guys like Terrion Arnold as anxious to tackle ball carriers in space as he is. The safety play from Georgia, I just thought the defense was incredibly physical as a unit, and they play in great harmony together. On the offensive line, I thought it was a real position of liability heading into the season. They gave up a ton of sacks against Texas, really struggled to be able to pass protect at times. Some of that's Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe still holds the ball a little bit too long. He's got to find a way to anticipate and get the ball out more. But I thought the Alabama ball carriers, including Milroe, played with a high level of physicality. And it just was an approach to go out there and show who the real bully on the block was, because we all made the mistake that, Alabama's lost it's in the hierarchy of the SEC. They've lost their perch at the top. Georgia has come in and obviously won the last 2 national championships, but how many SEC championships do they have to show for it? That was the thing that stood out to me, Chris, was how much the Alabama Crimson Tide players, the staff, the coaches, the fans celebrated what winning an SEC title means. And I know you can say that it keeps them alive in the college football playoffs, but I think they really took great pleasure in leaving that stadium knowing that they are the best team in this 14-team conference that's viewed as the best football conference in the country.
Yeah, Chris, I can't disagree more with people that say, and I understand the expanded playoff, right? We're not going to get games that like that SEC championship that don't have a net below them to where, Georgia would still be in a 12-team playoff. Like, I get that. People like games with no safety net, as they like to say. But winning the SEC, forgive me, I just don't ever see it losing its luster. I mean, it's just when you win the best conference in the land, I thought, I looked at that game, Chris, and maybe this is just me, but I looked at that game as a big game, not because of the college football playoff. That was an added plus, but because of the implications of the game, because of what it would have meant had Kirby Smart beaten his mentor and Nick Saban, and what it means for Nick Saban instead to beat his protege. I mean, that to me was why that was a big football game. And I mean, I'm sure you can expand as a player, but I don't think the playoff changes what that game's going to mean.
I agree with you on that. It's so difficult to win. It's so tough to get to that game, and it's going to get even more difficult with the elimination of divisions. Like, just getting to Atlanta is an accomplishment in and of itself. And I can tell you, I played in the first 4 of these. I know what it's like to be able to I know what it's like to lose, as we lost the first one in '92, and I know what it means to win as we won the next 3. And to be able to walk off of that stadium, that field in that stadium after an SEC championship game really means something to the players. And Coach Spurrier used to talk to us. He said you can take championships to the grave. You know, banners, titles, ring games, those are important. Money doesn't go with you, but championships do. And that's always been my approach. And you could see that Alabama takes great pride in leaving that field as a champion of the Southeastern Conference again.
So, Chris, you look at this game. Let me ask you this first. What do you say to the Dog fans that come to you and ask about, well, Chris, what about that fourth down play where the catch that appeared to be not a catch, Kirby Smart didn't take a timeout? What was your thoughts on that call? That certainly was – I'm not saying that's why Georgia won, obviously, but,
well,
I mean –
it was the
went a
biggest
long
play in the
way.
game. Fourth and 4 there was the biggest play in the ball game. And, I was standing at the other end of the sideline, so I really couldn't see it very well. I did think it was interesting that didn't get reviewed, but the catch down the Georgia sideline later got reviewed for
that was crazy.
Way
that
too
was
long.
crazy.
Like, I don't even know what they were looking at. But at the end of the day, what happened was Alabama went out there, won the ball game, but for the first time this season, Georgia contributed. Some of the mistakes that they made, the fumble inside the 20 is one that comes to mind. The penalty right before the field goal attempt at halftime that doinked off the upright comes to mind. But the things that weren't seen until you go back and look at the tape, missed blocks on 3rd and short, guys not fulfilling their assignments. I always brag about how well coached Georgia is and how well they are at going out there and doing what each of their assignments are. They are the ones that failed themselves. And if they executed a little bit better, perhaps they leave the field as the SEC champion. But take nothing away from Alabama. But it did not play out the way that I expected it to, and Georgia doing what they had done all season long and not contributing to the loss with some of their mistakes and lack of execution.
Certainly, Chris, some uncharacteristic moments from the Dogs, but that can happen against the Alabama Crimson Tide in a game like that. So, Chris, we move now, the conversation shifts to the college football playoff. I'll first ask you this. You watched that game. Those are 2 of the 4 best teams in college football, right? We're about to get into this conversation, but, I mean, you can't sit here and convince me that Georgia is not one of the 4 best. I understand why it didn't play out that way, but I am really happy we're getting the expanded playoff because a team like Georgia, they're one of the best 4, man. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
Forget the 10-year history of the college football playoff rankings, which we've never seen a number 1 drop that far from losing the championship game. But tell me when in any of the AP or coaches polls that we've ever seen a number 1 team lose to a top 10 opponent and fall 5 spots. Like, the fact that they went to number 6 was an absolute joke. I still think if you're looking, and we can talk more about the Florida State stuff coming up here, but if you're looking at who the 4 best teams are, Georgia is one of those 4 best teams. You can tell just with the eye test. And that's why we don't use the BCS rankings anymore. That's why we use human beings that are able to make decisions and can deduce based upon what their eye tells them. And so I think that everybody knows that Georgia's one of the best. They do get screwed by the fact that there's only 4 teams. It's a credit to the improvement of some of the other Power 5 conferences. Watching what Washington has done in the Pac-12 this year is impressive. Watching what the resurgence of Texas in the Big 12 has done is impressive. But in a normal season, Georgia loses that game by 3 points to a top 10 opponent, and they still are in the college football playoff field.
Chris, let's get into the college football playoff field. At number 1, Michigan. Number 2, Washington. Those 2 made a lot of sense. Both those teams handle their business. I think we were all in agreement. Okay, 1-2 is going to be those 2 teams. Beyond that is where things started to get interesting. At number 3, you have the Texas Longhorns, who won the Big 12 championship. And, of course, they beat Alabama at their place by double digits earlier in the season. Then at number 4, Alabama gets the nod over undefeated Florida State. Florida State without Jordan Travis. Let me add that. So this is the talking point in the college football world today. Your thoughts? Did the committee get it right in their top 4? Would your top 4 have been different in any way? And specifically on the Florida State conversation, if they did or did not get it right, your reasoning why?
Well, you can ask the question, did they get it right or did Florida State get screwed? And the answer to those questions are yes and yes. Both things can exist, right? Because I do think that Florida State, you go through the entirety of your regular season schedule, you win your conference championship game, you're a Power 5 conference member, and yet you get left out, that is getting screwed. But at the same time, without Jordan Travis, you watched it with your own eyes. You watched how they struggled to score against a Florida defense that's not very good. You watching them struggle to score against a Louisville defense that just gave up 38 points to a middle-of-the-road Kentucky team the previous week. Those things are actually true as well. If they would have gotten into the field, they're probably double-digit underdogs to the number one seed. So I think Alabama, the champion of the Southeastern Conference, the resume, the strength of record, the fact that they come in with a win over the number one team in the country, combined with Jordan Travis not being available, they made the right decision there. But as you said, I mean, what a perfect segue into the expansion of the field to 12. There's so many arguments that lead Georgia being left out. The fact that Florida State's left out as an undefeated ACC champion is a perfect example of that. And I'm just excited about what those matchups will look like next year.
Chris, to your point, I was just thinking that this is a perfect segue into the 12-team playoff because you know what would solve this? An expanded playoff, and we're going to get that next year. To your point, by the way, Chris, of the committee, maybe, I don't know, just I don't want to say not knowing what they're doing, but I mean, Florida State 5, Georgia 6. There's nobody, and we're going to get the game, but I don't think there's many folks out there that think Florida State's going to beat Georgia. Unfortunately, that game's probably going to be very opt-out impacted, but I don't think anybody be taking FSU to beat Georgia without Jordan Travis. Let's just clarify. I don't see that.
And I think you go down, the rest of the list. I think, Georgia deserved to be ahead of Florida State. I think that, SMU deserved to be ahead of Liberty. I mean, there are a lot of different mistakes and hypocrisies that were shown by the committee. But I thought what would have been interesting, Chris. Let's say that Georgia would have won that game and they stay at number one. Michigan wins, stays at number two. Washington wins, and then Florida State's an undefeated Power 5 champion. I think the committee would have gone with the four undefeated teams. It's a nice, neat package. You don't have to get into any of the adversity. But when one spot opened up, then the debate became between Texas and Alabama. Do you leave a one-loss SEC champion out? If you're going to put Alabama in, you have to put Texas in. And so when that availability for only one team opened up, it was Florida State that could be justified the best as being left out because of Jordan Travis not being available.
So, Chris, what do you say to, we heard some analysts yesterday in the college football ranking selection show mention it's a travesty for the sport. It's a black eye on college football. Like, what do you say to that? Because I agree with you. I think the committee's job was to get the four best. And to your point, that's what I keep going back to that I'm surprised more people aren't bringing up. This is why we have a committee of human beings and not computers determining, because to your point, it's not just put numbers in a computer. It's use your eyes and your brain, and you tell me with a straight face that Florida State without Jordan Travis, and it sucks, and you're right, they got screwed. But you tell me with a straight face they are the same football team. I understand what their team as a collective earned, and that sucks. But I think more so who hurt Florida State's chances is TCU last year, where it's like you have a team, and they beat Michigan, but nobody wants to see 65-7 again. I mean, it's just – so it's – do you put the four best in, what the computers say, maybe the undefeated, or do you let the human beings use their brain and use judgment and make the determination? And they're far from perfect. Human error is real, but – we can talk in circles forever about this thing. Truly.
Yeah. Well, I think Florida State has a lot of people to blame, and they can blame their own leadership. I mean, my co-host on SEC this morning made a good point. Peter Burns said today, if you go back and look, the Bowl Alliance, the alliance that the ACC made with the Big 12 and the Big 10, where they decided, that they weren't going to vote to bring the expanded playoffs to the 2023 season. We could have been dealing with a 12-team playoff this year if they would have not voted against moving that up. Also, you look at the committee, there are more committee members that have ties to the ACC, including Boo Corrigan, who's the ACC, the athletic director at NC State, who is the committee spokesperson. Like, this was not an SEC inside job. This was not any sort of SEC bias. It's people, as you said, that are looking with their own eyes and can see that this is a totally different team. And I think you go back to what you said and about the blowout last year with TCU. Like, nobody wants that, and that's exactly what was coming. You watch Florida State but they scored 16 points against the team that Kentucky. Alabama owes Kentucky a bit of a thank you too. That was the biggest win of the SEC conference season, to take away, or the out of conference season, to be able to take away what would have been a top 10 win from Florida State, had they've been able to beat Kentucky. Louisville losing some of its regard nationally was a big deal. But go back and look, like, what is Florida State's biggest win? They lost to a 3-loss SEC, or they beat a 3-loss SEC, probably fourth or fifth team in the conference in LSU. Clemson had 4 losses. They were a ranked team at the time. Duke was a ranked team at the time. They had 5 losses. So there's a lot that can go around, but the blame on the ACC themselves and not, taking advantage of a fast start in weeks 1 and week 2 is really what cost Florida State as well.
Chris, I have to imagine, just on the Florida perspective, I doubt there were many tears shed yesterday in Gainesville, correct?
Well, I saw some great memes, one of which had Florida State, Georgia, Florida in the same slide, saying all 3 out of the playoffs, same deal, right? But I think, again, the eye test will tell you they're 2 different. But it's really hard for me. I don't have a lot of great things to say about Florida State typically. Much more respect for Georgia and the SEC members here in this league. But I did feel really bad for Florida State's players and for Mike Norvell. Watching them hear the news of the reaction was very tough to watch. But I think at the same time, one of the most telling reactions was Michigan when they announced that it was Alabama that they'd be playing. Oh man, that to me is the greatest illustration that the committee got it right by having Alabama in over Florida State.
Very telling indeed, Chris. So as we look towards the playoff, just your first reaction to the matchups. We're going to get Michigan and Alabama. I think that's going to be the 5:00 game at the Rose Bowl. The later game, Texas and Washington. So we could potentially get a rematch of Alabama and Texas, which ironically enough, Chris, let's just call it for what it'd be. It'd be an all-SEC national championship because Texas is literally joining the league next summer. So your thoughts, though, on the potential path for Alabama. I mean, at this point, we spent all season doubting Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. I don't know many folks that are probably going to want to do that again with extra time to get ready.
Yeah, you look at the 4 teams in the field, man, you're talking about some massive brands there, and it's so cool to see those logos, the Michigan M and the Texas Longhorns and the Alabama Crimson Tide, and watching Washington be in the mix. It really is pretty impressive in that way. But you can tell me what you want. I think I saw Michigan was a 2-point favorite initially over Alabama. The favorite to win it all is the Alabama Crimson Tide. I honestly think that the best matchup and what we're likely to see in Houston is with the 3 and 4 seeds playing one another and getting that rematch that you talked about. Not only will we get the rematch of an earlier September game from this season, we get a 2009 national championship rematch between the Longhorns and the Crimson Tide. So I think there's a ton of great storylines, but I'm so excited that Alabama gets to play Michigan in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day at the typical 5:00 kickoff time, Eastern Standard Time, or the Eastern time that it'll be played.
Chris, to the rest of the bowl slate, I'm not going to ask you to go into any specifics in regards to these games. We got a long time before these games are played, but was there any particular game or games that jumped out to you? I mean, obviously, Georgia, Florida State's a big one. Mizzou, Ohio State. I can't wait to see what Mizzou can do in that one, although now we know Kyle McCord is in the transfer portals. I mean, it's funny. We talk about these bowl games, and, I'm a college football junkie. You are as well. We're going to be excited either way, but they don't mean exactly what they meant, or they don't look the way they looked, just say 10 or 15 years ago. But Ole Miss, Penn State, I mean, Tennessee, Iowa. Can Iowa get off the bus and score any points? Anyways, were there any games, any of the matchups that you saw and you were like, "Oh, I'm really excited to see that"?
I think first and foremost, it is the Missouri-Ohio State matchup. I think that's going to be an interesting game because you're going to have a team in Missouri that's all going to play. I have a hard time believing any of those players are going to opt out. And then you look at Ohio State, you're already going to be out Kyle McCord. Can't imagine that Marvin Harrison Jr. plays. That some of the other guys that are NFL bound are going to play in that one. So I would probably give the advantage to Missouri in that. I feel like Ole Miss and Penn State, too. It's like that old Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. They're both those teams that have tried to get into the upper echelons of their respective conferences neither of them being able to get the wins over the two big teams in their league to push themselves into that same grouping, both 10-2. So that should be a really good one. And knowing that we're having Jackson Dart back next year means we get a chance to have him in this ball game. I think Ole Miss will be pretty close to full strength. And then the one off the radar that I'm most excited about, Chris, is Clemson and Kentucky. I've been going on and on about how valuable that Kentucky win over Louisville was. They get a chance to play another ACC team. So that's one that I'm going to keep my eye on as well.
Chris Doering of SEC Network does a fantastic job. Chris, one last thing, and I'll get you out of here again. We appreciate you being gracious with your time. The transfer portal madness has officially begun. Again, I mentioned Kyle McCord at Ohio State. Yeah. We've seen Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma into the portal, which I think that one's interesting because they said he still might play in the bowl game, which I'm like, wait, you're entering the portal, but you might.
Hold on now. Does that not make perfect sense? They got a stud out there at Oklahoma that they're excited about. And Dylan Gabriel now can go with Jeff Levy to Starkville to be the next coach of the next quarterback at Mississippi State. I think it's a perfect agreement because I think that Oklahoma wants to move on with the younger player next year. But why not let Dylan Gabriel play in this one, knowing that he's likely to go with Coach Levy? So I think it makes a lot of sense there.
And State has emerged, I believe, as one of the favorites to land him. Also, Will Rogers getting the crystal ball to Washington, which I think that makes a lot of sense when you look at his dynamic, his profile as a player, I should say, and I think what he could be in the Washington offense as a gunslinger. We've seen it with Juice Wells, Chris Doering, entering the transfer portal. That was one that really surprised people and, of course, happened within the last 5 or 6 days or so. Your just overall thoughts on the portal madness? I think you and I talked about this a couple months ago, but, I mean, do you follow along? Like, what's your overall thoughts on just what takes place? We've seen Nolan from Texas A&M, the great defensive lineman. He's important. I mean, it's true. Let's call it for what it is. It's true free agency in college football. Like, and it's great for content, but it's madness.
It's great for you and I for what we do here talking about the sport. But as a former player, I can't even imagine putting myself in that position. Like growing up, loving Florida, loving my experience there through my first couple of years, the idea of going somewhere else to play my final season is just something I can't even wrap my brain around. But you said it's like free agency. Yeah, it's like free agency without any sort of rules. There's no the salary cap. There's no sort of guide rails there. There's nothing to prevent roster tampering, which we know still is taking place. So there has to be a couple things that get mandated. I do think we still need some scheduling uniformity, which we can go back to what we talked about before. All schedules are not even, and so it does require the committee members to make judgments. But I also think we need some sort of rules in place. But enforcement in place is maybe the biggest thing because there are rules right now, but none of them are being enforced. And when you have a coach come out like Matt Rule did and said that a starting quarterback in the portal can go from anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million, you're talking about pay for play. And those things right now are supposed to be illegal. They need to be enforced, and as does roster tampering.
Chris, man, it's been a fun season. I appreciate you. We'll be in conversation after this. I want you to take some time off, man. You've deserved it. And by the way, I want to plug this. You do a great job with your good friend Jacob Hester pre-gaming the SEC. Highly encourage folks to check it out. We follow on social media. I see you guys clips all the time. Saw all the SEC championship stuff again. You guys, I saw you had Stephen Garcia on the airwaves. I'm sure that was a
Stephen
fun.
Garcia. Yeah, he came in. And by the way, for all the Gamecock folks there, down in Gainesville, we started an award along with the Football Writers Association of America, the Steve Spurrier First Year Coach of the Year Award. Coach Spurrier took such pride in what he did when he took over at Duke, what he did in his first year when he took over at Florida, what he did when he took over at South Carolina. And everybody says you got to be patient. You got to have time to let a coach build his program. And some of that's true, but I think what Coach Spurrier did was getting guys to buy into the vision of what he was trying to create and gave you guys experience that, you know, how much confidence and swagger he gave the teams that he coached because of who he was. So we have that first year Coach of the Year award in his name in Gainesville. I think that Stephen Garcia is going to come up for the event in February. I'll have to get the information to you, but just a great opportunity to not only celebrate the winners, and this year we're going to be honoring Coach Rick as the Legend Award winner, and we'll see who ends up winning. I think Jeff Brom might be in the running. There's a few other first-year coaches that might be in the running this year. But for those of you that want to come celebrate Coach Spurrier and what he meant to college football, we'd love to have those folks in attendance and get in Gainesville in late February.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, we'll stay in touch, Chris. Again, I appreciate you. Again, take some time off, my
Yeah,
friend. It's well-deserved. You and I will be in touch off the air, but, man, really good
sounds good.
stuff. This season was a blast, and we'll talk again soon, my friend.
Been fun, man. Take care, Chris.
Yeah, man, appreciate you. Great stuff, guys. Our good friend, Chris Doering of SEC Network. I mentioned that end of the interview, end of the conversation. We might get Chris on one or two more times throughout bowl season, if you will, because there'll be a ton to talk about. But with the holidays, I just wanted to be sure Chris knew how grateful we were for him. Things get a little crazy over the next couple weeks, obviously, with Christmas upcoming and all that good stuff. But either way, you guys will hear from Chris Doering again, and it's always an electric conversation with him. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, why the College Football Playoff Committee, in my opinion, they got it right. Did Florida State get screwed? Yes, they did. But the best four teams are in, and that is their job. I'll give you guys my reasoning on that. All that and much more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose, while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you.
That's your Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Monday, December the 4th, 2023. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Guys, continue to leave us your thoughts, your reactions, your questions, what have you. 843-790-3377. You can call in, you can text in. Also, you can comment on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Be sure to leave us your commentary, guys. I want to hear your full reactions, your thoughts on everything. Multiple Gamecocks entering the transfer portal. Also, some guys returning. Tonka Hemingway and now TJ Sanders, both two big pieces on the defensive front that announced they will return for South Carolina. The TJ Sanders news happening within the last hour or so. So your thoughts on the transfer portal, your thoughts on Juice Wells, your thoughts on the college football playoff rankings, your thoughts on Florida State, the SEC title. I want to hear from you guys. That daily mailbag segment will take place at the end of today's show. Again, guys, the text line is a great way to get in. Calling us and leaving a voicemail is a great way to get in. And also, of course, our Discord, our chat, all that good stuff. Guys, in the meantime, was anybody else genuinely nervous watching the college football playoff rankings show yesterday? I found myself with, maybe nervous isn't the right word, but a sort of energy and excitement, if you will, because you knew that something unprecedented was going to happen. Something that had never happened before was going to happen, no matter what took place. Either we were going to have no SEC team, we were going to, for the first time, leave out an undefeated Power 5 champion. There was a lot on the line yesterday. And at the end of the day, these are your top four. Now, two of them, there was no drama. Number 1 and number 2, Michigan and Washington. Michigan undefeated, handled their business against Iowa in the Big Ten Championship. Washington, a team that a lot of folks doubted, including yours truly. I picked Oregon to win the Pac-12 title, thought Oregon would get their revenge. Washington said, no, sir. Finish it off 13-0. They win the final Pac-12 championship, at least Pac-12 championship looking like what we know it to be. Either way, so Michigan won, Washington 2. Beyond that, there was speculation. There was questioning. There was who's going to be 3, who's going to be 4. I think a lot of us felt confident that Texas would be in at number 3, and they were, finishing 12-1 and winning the Big 12 championship. And at number 4, the question was, is it going to be Alabama, SEC champions, or is it going to be Florida State, undefeated ACC champs, but without their starting quarterback, Jordan Travis? As the logo was revealed, as the logo was unveiled, it was the Alabama A that was presented. Florida State at 5, Georgia at 6, and the college football world reacted in a frenzy. Let me start by saying this. I do genuinely feel for Florida State, for Mike Norvell, for Jordan Travis, for that entire program. I feel for the fans of Florida State. Because when you look at things, you say, what else could they have done? They were an undefeated Power 5 champion. They won all of their games. They beat LSU to kick off the season in the non-conference. Even after Jordan Travis went down, They went into Gainesville, hostile environment, beat the Gators at their place on rivalry weekend, then went in the ACC championship. They beat the Louisville Cardinal, a team that, yes, had lost to Kentucky the week prior, but was 10-2 and was one of the best teams in the ACC, hence why they were in that game all season long. Florida State did everything they could do. So did Florida State get screwed? Absolutely they did. But did the committee get it right putting Alabama in at number 4? Absolutely they did. Guys, you know what the beauty of the committee is? And the committee gets it wrong a lot, right? We question the committee. Is it most deserving? Is it the best? Like, how do they determine these things? Is it just a made-for-TV product? What are they basing this off of, right? The committee's far from perfect. But the beautiful thing about having a committee is this, guys. In the old system, the BCS, we allowed computers to determine who was in the national championship. And that system was far from perfect. Look at 2004 Auburn as a great example. An undefeated Auburn Tigers team that went 13-0. So when you look at this year, the beauty of having a committee, guys, is this. And I don't know why more folks aren't bringing this point up. The beauty of a committee and having human beings on a committee is the ability to use logic and critical thinking when it comes to determining, okay, who are the best 4 teams in college football? Who are the best 4 teams? That's the job of the committee. Give us the 4 best teams. Most deserving, guys, those are the teams that went undefeated. We have group of 5 teams that go undefeated every other year. Are they deserving of being in? Nobody would argue that. We would talk about eye test. We'd talk about resume. We'd say, well, I mean, anybody with a brain would look and see that team can't compete with the 4 who are in there. The committee used logic and critical thinking and used their brains to determine, you know what? As unfortunate as it is, as much as it sucks, as much as Florida State is getting screwed over, one of these does not belong. When you looked at the 5, you looked at the 6 teams. Guys, I'd put Georgia back in before I'd put Florida State in. If you're talking about the 4 best teams, I'd still argue Georgia is one of the 4 best. No question. But when it comes down to Alabama or Florida State, there is nobody out there with any football sense that thinks Florida State without Jordan Travis would beat Alabama or beat Texas or beat Washington or beat Michigan. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And we hear the argument about, well, what about 2014 Ohio State with Cardell Jones? Guys, do you really think Tate Rodemaker's Cardell Jones? Is that what you're telling me right now? Come on. Come on. And I'll also add this. I'm in favor of the 12-team college football playoff. And I've heard all the pushback about how it demeans the regular season. The regular season will mean nothing. What about games with no safety nets? But the regular season, it means nothing. Guys, we just got shown in a 4-team playoff, the regular season meant nothing. Isn't that ironic? In a 12-team playoff, guess what? Florida State would have the opportunity to go prove it on the field. You want to talk about the regular season meaning nothing? What about a system that is a 4-team playoff when there are 5 power conferences? How does that make any sense? The regular season will mean nothing to who? Ask Florida State how much the regular season means today. Ask them how they would feel about a 12-team playoff. So this just debunks everyone's argument about, well, it just, it kills the regular season. Baloney. Bullshit is what I say to that. But at the end of the day, as tough as the decision was, the committee got it right, guys. The committee got it right. It's about putting the 4 best teams in. The one-loss SEC champion is one of the 4 best. And you could not put Bama in without putting Texas in, who beat Alabama on their home field by double digits. And I love the people that try to write that off as, well, that game was months ago. And all these teams change, by the way. So I heard that argument too. Well, Florida State's changed the team. Nobody's looking, how has Texas changed? How has Bama changed? I understand those teams have changed. Teams evolve. But teams typically get better as the season goes. So Texas, if anything, they should be a better version of what they were in that game. Bama certainly is a better version of what they were early on. And so, again, the beauty of the committee is this, guys. We don't have computers blindly putting teams in. We don't have that. And it sucks. But here's something I think is rich. Here's something I think is just really rich. There are folks out there, I'm not going to name them. There are folks out there who have spent years, years, belittling the ACC, how terrible the ACC is. The all cupcakes conference. They don't play nobody. They're terrible. And now they have a problem that Florida State's getting left out without their best player. Now we're touting the ACC. Now you're wanting to defend the mighty ACC. Come on, man. So which is it? Is Florida State as good as they are because they play in the All Cupcakes Conference? And now you're going to tell me that team without their starting quarterback is one of the best 4? Come on. Come on. The irony in that is incredible, truly. So, the bottom line is this. It's about the 4 best. Michigan and Washington, no-brainer. They were in. Texas, I think they deserve to be in as well. Beat Alabama by double digits, one of the best non-conference wins. Next year to be a conference game, but one of the best non-conference wins of the season. And then Alabama beating the back-to-back national champions, what they did in that SEC title game. And again, using logic, using your brain, there's nobody that would take Florida State to beat Alabama. Nobody. So, did Bama get screwed? Did Florida State get screwed? Yes. Did the committee get it right? Yes. Both things can be true. Both things are true. And now our college football playoff Final Four is set. And I can't wait to watch it unfold. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about that SEC championship that took place. I'm here to eat some crow because, boy, I was wrong. I doubted the GOAT. I was wrong. I'm going to eat some crow. We're going to talk about the game, guys. All that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Monday. Not sure if you guys saw this. I think this one kind of went under the radar. Just saw this on Instagram. Gamecocks wide receiver Amarian Brown has officially declared for the 2024 NFL Draft. So, guys, when they mentioned roster turnover for South Carolina, I think it was J.C. Sherbert that had mentioned this. Of course, we're going to get him on the show tomorrow to get an update. I mean, guys, if I had to guess, it looks like to me South Carolina is probably flipping about a third of their roster. Like when you look at the guys that are entering the portal, you look at guys that are graduating, you look at guys that are going to the league, it is a large chunk of the roster that are headed out. So we'll continue to keep you updated on all things transfer portal. I mean, it really got going this morning. Obviously, the big news, Kyle McCord, Ohio State quarterback, he hit the portal, which I don't know if that was Ohio State pushing him out. I don't know if that was Kyle McCord wanting to leave. Texas A&M wide receiver Evan Stewart commented this on Hayes Fawcett's last Instagram post. If you don't know who Hayes Fawcett is, he does like all the big transfer portal graphics, or a lot of them. Evan Stewart said this: I saw it coming freshman year when I didn't get paid $1 from A&M, but sliced bread had y'all thinking we was all millionaires. I think that is great evidence, guys, that transfer portal NIL is not exactly – I think some guys are being sold a bag of goods that aren't always there. Let's just put it that way. So I wonder what Billy Lucci and the Tex Ags folks are going to have to say in response to that. So, anyways, guys, moving forward, again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Continue to leave us your questions, your comments, your voicemails, what have you guys. Also, flood the text line. We'll get into all that in about 20 or 30 minutes or so. In the meantime, we continue along with the Daily Crow. We continue with the show. I'm here to eat my crow. I'm here to eat my crow when it comes to the Alabama Crimson Tide. I can take you all the way back, guys, to this summer. This summer, I went to SEC Media Days for the first time in my entire life. It was a fantastic experience. The week of SEC Media Days and throughout the summer, I forget the exact date, I gave my predictions for each and every single SEC team this year. Okay? East, West, what have you. Gave my predictions for every single SEC team. Picked each division. Picked conference champion, of course. I picked LSU to win the West. Picked Georgia to win the title. I picked Alabama to go 9-3 this season. I picked against Alabama multiple times this season. Once I was right. Picked them to lose at Texas, right? I think a lot of folks had that pick. But either way, I picked Alabama to lose to Texas A&M. I picked Alabama to lose to Georgia. I picked Alabama to lose, I think, one other game that I'm not even recalling. To LSU. Picked them to lose to LSU. I picked Alabama to lose 4 times this season. 4 total times. And as we sit here on the Monday after the SEC championship, Alabama fans, Alabama faithful, I'm here to eat crow because I was wrong. I was dead wrong on Alabama. I bought some of the offseason. The dynasty is dying. Kirby Smart and Georgia are taking over. I drank a little too much of that Kool-Aid. And Alabama did what they do best. Nick Saban did what he does best. I doubted the GOAT, admittedly. And I am man enough to sit here today and tell you all that I was wrong. I was wrong. Alabama takes down Georgia 27-24 in an SEC title game that really, guys, outside of that opening drive for Georgia, Bama controlled. Bama controlled that football game. And I think what was so impressive, right? I mean, we can talk about, guys, plenty, the growth of Alabama from the Texas and USF games to now, the transformation, really, of that football team, the growth of Jalen Milroe, the growth of each coach on that coaching staff into their respective roles, coaching that team up to that point. But what we saw on Saturday was typical Alabama. And a Georgia team and a Georgia program that still got that monkey on your back. That Nick Saban, Alabama monkey, it's still there. And it's still large and it's still looming. First off, guys, what an incredible game this was. Back and forth. I mean, I say two of the four best teams in all of college football. I still think Georgia, Georgia, a lot of self-inflicted errors. We saw a lot of things with Georgia we were not used to seeing. And we talked about last week why that may happen, because Georgia's gotten to a point, not that they weren't here before, but I saw it a lot this season. You get to a point where you feel like you're playing more than the logo, right? It's like, we're not just playing a bunch of 5 stars. We're not just playing one of the best rosters in college football. You start looking at that Georgia G. You start thinking about that trophy case. You start thinking about what Georgia is as a program. The task becomes even more daunting, right? And a lot of teams that played Georgia this year played that way. They were intimidated. They were, let's just say, scared. Georgia was able to impose their will against them and win not just the physical matchup, but the mental matchup as well. But we knew Alabama was not going to be like that. We knew that Alabama was not going to be phased. They were not going to be intimidated. And that this was going to be good on good, great on great, elite on elite. And that's exactly what we got. I thought Alabama did a great job after that opening drive, like I mentioned, making adjustments, because Georgia went right down the field. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Dogs might run away with this one. Credit Bama for the adjustments made. I really felt like Bama, guys, was the aggressor in this game. Both teams went 2 for 2 on 4th down, but I felt like Bama was the team that went out there and took it. They went out there and took it, especially early, setting the tone, going for it on 4th down a couple times. Guys, we can talk about forever the play that was not reviewed, and I know that nobody in this chat has sympathy for Georgia at this point and sympathy for what the Dogs did or did not do. They could have called a timeout. They could have reviewed it. But why have review if you're not going to review a play like that? Simply put, why have review? Why then? And then later in the game, they review a play. No business in reviewing it. Why have review? That play not being reviewed was shocking on a critical 4th down. That being said, that is not why Georgia lost the football game. That is not why. Georgia lost the football game because of self-inflicted mistakes, something we did not think Georgia was, even capable of. We had not seen it really all season. The fumble inside their own 20 was baffling. That was baffling. That was absolutely baffling. And give Georgia credit, by the way. They fought back. They were resilient. I mean, even with all those self-inflicted wounds, those self-inflicted errors, they had a chance late in that ball game. But against a team like Alabama, guys, you're just simply not going to overcome it. And give Bama credit. They played a clean football game. Guys, there was only one turnover in this game, and it made all the difference. Bama won the turnover margin 1-0, +1. The only turnover, again, Georgia's fumble inside the 20. That was the difference in the game. What stood out on the field of play? Bama's physicality. We talk about physicality all the time, guys, in the trenches. I mean, it's what the SEC is built on. Holding Georgia to 78 rushing yards. And I know the Dogs haven't been elite running the football this year. But 2.5 yards per carry, that's just unheard of. Unheard of for Georgia. 78 total rushing yards. I mean, Bama just 2.8 yards per carry. I thought Carson Beck, guys, was solid in this game. Not great, but solid. 21 of 29, 243. He was efficient for sure. And I mean, again, guys, you look at the stats. I mean, Georgia outgained Bama. 321 to 306. Passing yards were 243 to 192, Georgia. Bama won rushing yards, 114 to 78. Georgia, 4 for 12 on third down. Alabama, 3 for 13. Both teams, 2 for 2 on fourth down. I mean, it really came down to, guys, one team made a critical error, a self-inflicted error, and one team didn't. One team flinched, and one team didn't. And that team that flinched was the Georgia Bulldogs. And it's one mistake. It's one mistake that costs you in a game like that. It's one mistake that costs you in a game of that magnitude. And again, you got to give Bama so much credit for their growth as a football team. Again, I'm eating my crow here on this Monday. I ate a lot of it in the Discord on Saturday after the game. I'm continuing to do so because, again, I doubted Bama at every turn this season. I picked them to go 9-3. I picked them to lose to Texas. I picked them to lose to LSU. I picked them to lose to Texas A&M. I picked them to lose to Georgia. I doubted Nick Saban. I doubted, the dynasty is dead. The dynasty is ending. Doubted them at every turn. And it's just finally time to eat some crow here on this Monday. The emergence of Isaiah Bond at wide receiver, what he's meant to Alabama football over the last couple weeks. Jermaine Burton against his old team, 2 for 28 and a touchdown. I mean, you look at this game, guys, it's like, what does Georgia, what do they need to do? I think Georgia's doing all the right things, guys. They're recruiting well. They're using the portal. It's just one of those things, man. Until Nick Saban is no longer in college football, until he's no longer at Alabama, the SEC is going to continue to run through Tuscaloosa. And I had the early call on right now, Kirby Smart, the best coach in college football. Kirby Smart is that guy. Back-to-back national champions, 29 wins in a row. But you got to put respect on Nick Saban and Alabama. A classic of an SEC championship. And again, one team flinched, one team didn't. That team that flinched was the Georgia Bulldogs, and now, of course, Bama onto the college football playoff. And, I mean, guys, if you're betting on anybody, who's betting against Bama right now? Who's betting against Bama? I mean, we know the roster's loaded. We know the roster's chock full of 5 stars and elite talent. We know it is. It's crazy how it all works out, guys. It's crazy how it all works out, and I certainly learned a couple of hard lessons this year. But either way, an elite SEC title game. And the only shame in it is that we don't get to see both Georgia and Alabama compete for the national title. So, Crimson Tide get the win, 27-24. The SEC season is officially in the books completely, and now we turn our attention to transfer portal, NIL, and bowl season, which is nearly upon us. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, our daily mailbag segment officially begins. We're taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails as well. I want to hear from you, your full thoughts on the SEC championship, the college football playoff rankings, the transfer portal, whatever you have on your mind. 843-790-3377, or you can comment on YouTube, X, Facebook as well. Going to be a lot of fun, guys. All that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle doggy ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Monday, December the 4th, 2023, as the Q&A segment of our show officially begins. Our daily mailbag segment, next 45 minutes or so, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails. 843-790-3377. You guys have reactions to the college ball playoff rankings, the transfer portal, the SEC title, whatever it might be, guys. Would love to hear from you again. You can text that number, 843-790-3377. You can call and leave a voicemail, or you can comment, and we'll get to all those. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Texter says, we're doing a whole lot of crying over a wide receiver that never scored a receiving touchdown at Williams-Brice Stadium. Of course, that texter is talking about Juice Wells. I hear what he's trying to say. I hear the point he's trying to make, but there's not a Gamecock out there that wouldn't have signed up for Juice Wells' return, despite the fact he never caught a touchdown pass at Williams-Brice Stadium, which is a wild fact, by the way, which is a wild fact. Texter says, this is Anthony from Hinesville. He says, have you heard any rumors of other SC players are in the portal other than the ones we already know? Thanks. Love the show. Anthony, appreciate you. Any big ones? TJ Sanders announced he is back. That's a big boost for South Carolina. I think the other guys you keep an eye on, and again, this is what I'm told, Boogie Huntley, Nicky Manwari are just names you keep an eye on. I'm not saying they're going to leave. You just keep an eye on them. O'Donnell Fortune, I think it's only a matter of time before we hear him announcing he's going to Florida. That is the rumor on the street right now. I mean, outside of that, man, you never know. Things can change, and, where guys are going, are they staying, are they leaving, what have you. You just never know what might happen. Texter says, who do you think we should grab that has so far entered the portal? Also, do you predict any coaching changes to be announced soon? Guys, I have no idea on the coaching changes. I mean, I don't know. I don't think any of us know what Shane Beamer's timeline is. The way that he wants to operate, the way that he wants to work. I'm not sure many of us really know if that's the case, or what the case is on that, what the timeline is. In regards to who should South Carolina get out of the transfer portal, Jaden McGowan, I think, will be a really good one. I mean, guys, take your pick. I mean, there's a number of guys in the portal right now. South Carolina could add any. We know what the positions of need are, right? Don't we? We know what the positions of need are. Running back, wide receiver, defensive line, edge, defensive back. I mean, guys, there aren't many positions South Carolina shouldn't add good players, right? We've seen them offer guys, offensive linemen, what have you. So, I think certainly there's a lot of players. Literally take your pick. I think Jaden McGowan is that one makes a lot of sense. He's from Lawrence, South Carolina. I'd almost be surprised at this point if he did not end up in Columbia. Justin Martin says, Florida State, Georgia in the Orange Bowl. Chris, which team is going to show up? Florida State or Georgia? I got Georgia. Yeah, Justin, looking ahead at the bowl picture, man, I've got Georgia in the game. I mean, I just, unfortunately, I think the number of opt-outs that are going to come from Florida State is going to be monumental for sure. I mean, I think your ears probably just got destroyed like mine did. I do apologize. Was trying to go look at the bowl game schedule. That was bad. Trying to look at the bowl game schedule and a video popped up. I do apologize for that. Let's see if I can get to this. Those of you wearing headphones are probably screaming at me right now. Okay, anyways, wanted to look at the bowl game schedule. These all start December the 27th. These start on the 27th, run through New Year's Day. In case you missed it, beginning on the 27th. We got Oklahoma State, Texas A&M. We've got Kentucky and Clemson. What a game that is. We have Ohio State and Mizzou, Penn State and Ole Miss, Maryland and Auburn, Florida State and Georgia, LSU, Wisconsin, Tennessee and Iowa, and finally, Michigan and Alabama. That is the college football playoff. John, my bad, man. My apologies to those that are tuned in that heard that video. And again, I did not mean for that. Did not mean for that to play. Let's go back to guys, the comments. Let's see. The Sandstorm Show says, next year, the Pac-12 won't exist, and will still be a better conference than the ACC. How about that? Jonathan Lee, all have just one question. Will we attack the portal and get better? Who can we get to help stop the bleeding? I mean, again, Jonathan Lee, take your pick. I think there's a lot of players out there. I think attacking the portal and or getting a return on the portal, it's going to be something. Listen, the departures are going to happen quicker than the returns, than the additions, if you will. I know it's tough for Gamecock fans because it's just one after another, after another, after another. But this is just the modern day and age of college football, guys. It's the modern day and age. It just is what it is. I mean, the transfer portal, it's free agency in college football. And again, for someone like myself, like Chris Doering, as we just talked, here's the thing. The business of college football has never been better. College football from the fandom standpoint has been better. It has. Let's see, guys. We're going to get back to Texter says, hey, Chris, this is Seth from Liberty. When you have a chance to beat Georgia at their place, UNC, Florida, and Clemson, a fully capable roster to do so even with injuries, at what point should every single person on the staff be responsible? Like if our roster was coached by Saban's staff, Kirby's staff, or even Dabo's staff, we aren't being left out of a bowl game this year. Heck, we're probably a 9-win team or better. Curious to hear your thoughts. If South Carolina had Georgia staff, would they be a 9-win team? I say no. Seth, would it be one more win? Maybe. But South Carolina had Mike Bobo before. Mike Bobo is one of the best OCs in college football right now. What was he at South Carolina? Gamecock fans couldn't stand him. A lot of it, Seth, has to do with Jimmy's and Joe's. A lot of it. A lot of it's got to do with Jimmy's and Joe's. More than people want to give credit to, I think. So, does South Carolina need to retool their coaching staff? Yes, 100%. Do I love the fact that South Carolina has not made any changes? No, I don't. I don't love that fact. I don't. Certainly when you look, too, in the upstate, Clemson, Dabo, firing coaches, hiring coaches. Clemson hired Matt Luke as their offensive line coach. They added Chris Rump to their defensive staff. Those are two great hires. Just call it for what it is. Those are two great hires. And yet South Carolina, still no staff changes. What does it mean? I don't know, but I don't love the fact that South Carolina hasn't shuffled things up. No. I don't love that. Rattler for Heisman says, Will Shepard's in the portal. That's a big name for sure. Will Shepard is a big one. Will Shepard is a big one. Jeff Gullidge, need to stop looking at it as losing players and start looking at it as making room for new talented players to be added. Hammer the portal. Jeff, that's a really good point. Really, all South Carolina has lost right now that is a major knock or like a big deal, right? Because, guys, with the transfer portal, guys who are not playing, this is every school, guys who are not playing are going to enter the portal. It just is what it is. Like, it's going to happen at every school. Every single school is dealing with the transfer portal. Every single one of them, right? So, players that aren't playing, they want to play, they're going to try to enter the portal and go somewhere else they can play. And you can't blame guys like that. So, for South Carolina, most of the guys who have entered the portal thus far have been those kind of guys. The only loss that really hurts is the Juice Wells one. And of course, guys, in case you missed it, I'm sure you didn't, Juice Wells made it official last night, entering the transfer portal. I think there were some out there that were maybe still holding out hope he would change his mind, if the staff could convince him. Over the weekend, of course, also Juice Wells goes on Instagram Live, and I just whatever. I mean, the guy doesn't give a damn. It is what it is. So, anyways, that's the big loss. Outside of that, to the point of Jeff Gullidge, the portal is what it is, man. And South Carolina, you just have to hope and pray that the Gamecocks can go out and replace the players they have lost with equal to, if not better than, talent in the portal. John Rice says Mike Yuva is reporting that Alex Huntley, a.k.a. Boogie, is coming back to South Carolina. Okay, big news. Good news. Good news to get Boogie Huntley back. Very good news. Coach Ford says, when you can't play for us, you either should have never been recruited or those determining who play are stupid. Coach Ford is in a chipper mood as always. Appreciate you chiming in, Coach Ford. South Carolina men's basketball, 38th in the AP poll. Yeah, guys, huge slate of basketball this week for the SEC, especially South Carolina, guys. In case you missed it or in case I did not mention, we are actually operating a post-game call-in show for the South Carolina-Clemson game on Wednesday night. Wednesday, we'll talk a lot of Gamecocks basketball, preview the Carolina-Clemson game. I'll give my prediction for the game, all that good stuff. Going to be a lot of fun, guys. Looking forward to that. Going to be a big one. Little John Coliseum, Gamecocks and Tigers will do battle. Both teams are undefeated. How about that? Both teams undefeated. Austin Gregory comments. I'm going to put this out there for all the people who complain about why Beamer hasn't made a move yet. Has it ever occurred to you that the possible replacements are playing in a college ball playoff or New Year's Six? Austin Gregory, that's a very good point. I'll give you that. That's a very, very good point. They very well may be. Do you think they all are, Austin Gregory? You think there's going to be a lot of staff turnover on those staffs that have had those good of seasons? And that's a hell of a job by Beamer if that's the case, Austin. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. John Edward, yeah, I understand when bowl season starts. I was just mentioning the SEC bowl games start on the 27th. We got a while until bowl season starts for the SEC. Let's see. Coach Ford, every position is a position of need in the portal. I would agree with you. John Rice, if this past weekend's games were not the final games of the season, not the final college ball playoff rankings, does Georgia still drop out of the top 5 with the loss to Bama? Feel like they only dropped because them and Bama couldn't both be in. John, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, truly all hell would have broken loose if both Georgia and Bama were in. Again, guys, this season right here, I know there's people that argue against a 14 playoff that, it devalues the regular season. This season right here shows us why a 14 playoff is flawed. This season right here. This season right here shows us. Well, the regular season is not going to matter. It didn't matter this year for Florida State in regards to getting into the playoff. So, I mean, you got to miss me. You got to come up with something else. You got to come up with something else. Coach Ford says this. Beamer showed what a weak, unqualified leader he is, the way he handled Juice Wells. Should have booted his ass off the team. Justin Martin, is Shane Beamer want on DC and running back coach in the college ball playoff for NFL? Justin, I have no idea what coaches they want. Lynn Washington trashed the players now for transferring. Typical. Well, Lynn Washington, I'm certainly not doing that. I mean, I've said nothing ill about Juice Wells. I mean, I last week we just simply talked about the impact of what it means. But back to your point, Lynn, I would never, like, putting that type of negative energy out there, I think is never a good move. So, it's best to just let it just brush it off and move on. But Lynn, I tell you this, I will not blame anybody for being upset about the Juice Wells thing. I will not be upset, or I will not hold it against anyone for being upset about that. The way that was handled, it just is what it is, guys. When you screw over an entire fan base and a program and take the money and run, well, you're going to get a reaction that fits those actions, if you will. So, again, I don't blame many a Gamecock for having reactions to that. There's a line. There's a line that has to be drawn, no doubt. But Jacob E. says our wide receiver room is going to be horrendous if we don't smash the portal. Yeah, South Carolina's got to flip that room in the portal, no doubt. Guys, here's the reality. It's just, this is going to be a yearly thing. This is, as much as I hate it, you hate it, we all hate it. Like, the portal is what it is. It's going to be a yearly thing like this. South Carolina is going to have to continue to try to fight portal and NIL battles. They're going to have to continue to fight those battles. It's not getting any easier for South Carolina, guys. It's just not. It's not getting any easier. Sieber says, is Beamer out next year with the same results or worse? Sieber, I'll say this yet again. I think Shane Beamer gets till 2025. Never say never. I think if Carolina goes 4-8 or worse, all bets are off. I think if they go 5-7 or better, Sieber, he's back 100%. I think if they go 5-7, even 6-6, the heat is on going into 2025. I think he'd have to go 4-8 or worse for there to be real talks about, okay, this thing has gone off the rails. So I will be Sieber. I'll just tell you this. When it comes to the Beamer era, if he doesn't make it to 2025, I'll be really surprised. I'll be really, really surprised if he doesn't make it to 2025. Coach Ford says, can you imagine a Spurrier, Holtz, Bobby Bowden, Danny Ford saying that Juice is physically clear but not mentally ready? Don't be mad at Juice, be mad at Beamer. Coach Ford, listen, man, I hear you. I hear you, man. But, I would just say this. You can't make Juice Wells play. And you can't make him play, man. I understand. I get what you're saying. Coach Ford, he should have come out and said that Juice Wells, maybe he should handle it different. I get it. I totally get that, Coach Ford. But you can be mad at Juice Wells, too. You can be mad at Juice Wells, too. If you're a fan, you can be mad at Juice Wells. You absolutely can. Those things aren't exclusive. You can't pick. You don't have to pick one or the other. Bird Toffley, what are the odds 3+ SEC teams make a 12-team playoff? I think fairly good. Wouldn't you agree? I think this year, Georgia, Bama, no doubt are in. Mizzou and Ole Miss are right there on the cusp. So, I think it's – dude, Texas is in. Yes. Dude, once you add Texas and OU, at minimum 3 to 4 are getting in. At minimum 3 to 4. John Rice says you can announce a firing without announcing a hiring at the same time. Austin Gregory, I don't think they all are. Talking about the coaches, are they in the playoff? Are they in the New Year's Six? I don't think they all are, but I definitely could see him wanting to make all the changes at once. Well, I think Austin, too, you can understand the fact of why that's incredibly frustrating for the fan base. I'm sure you and many others can understand why that is such a frustrating thing to do. Jacob E. says, I don't think Ohio State was even that good. Best win was on the road against a mid-Notre Dame team. Big Ten is the worst conference in college football, top to bottom. I saw somebody, maybe it was Coach Ford, maybe it was somebody else mentioned this about, if it's about the best teams, why not put Ohio State in? They lost by 3 to Michigan, the number 1 team in the country. Guys, again, these are all reasons why the 4-team college football playoff ain't it. These are all fair reasons. These are all fair reasons. So if you want to lose your mind arguing, should it be 6, should it be 8, should it be 12, you can do that. But the fact of the matter is we're getting an expanded playoff next year to where we won't have to ask these questions. Because in my mind, what's the lesser of two evils? Which situation will we rather be in? Like Bama, Georgia having no safety net, or the fact that that game will have a safety net. Will that take a little bit of the shine away from the game? Maybe so. Ohio State, Michigan, the rivalry game, having a safety net. Will that take away a little bit? Sure. I still don't agree with the people that say those games mean nothing. To who? To who? Some of us still love college football and think it's great. And those games, Ohio State, Michigan, both teams could be over, and it would still mean everything. The game is the game is the game. I will take the evil of those games having a safety net to get a playoff in which we don't have to ask, well, what could Florida State do with a backup quarterback? We don't have to ask, well, is Georgia actually one of the 4 best? Is Ohio State actually one of the 4 best? We don't have to ask those questions, guys. We get to find out on the field of play. We get to find out on the field. We get to add some new flavor in an expanded playoff. We get to add some chaos, add some drama. And again, people will fall back and, well, the regular season won't mean anything. Florida State just went undefeated and didn't make the 14 playoff. You just lost out on that argument. So I just, anyways, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. You can call that number. You can text that number, guys. Leave us a voicemail, what have you. Robbie Davis. He texts in. Have a feeling that Wednesday we're going to get our revenge on that team in the upstate. Go Gamecocks. Let Paris cook. I'll have my prediction tomorrow. Great stuff, Robbie. Appreciate the text. Let's see. AJ Bauer says, does South Carolina take Gunnar Stockton if he does transfer? Why? You have Lenora Sellers. I mean, for depth, I don't think Gunnar Stockton, AJ, if he transfers, I don't think he's coming to South Carolina to sit the bench. I'll just put it that way. Pete McCormick, if Juice Wells is medically clear by the team doctor, can you withhold the balance of that money because a player refuses to play out the season? Do you understand the question? I think you're probably talking to somebody else. But, Pete, I'll respond to your question. Here's the thing, Pete. In the way you phrase the question, it makes it sound like the school is paying Juice Wells to do something. When in reality, unless I have a misunderstanding, that is not the case. Juice Wells has a bunch of NIL deals with different brands, different brand partners. And my guy, Eric Reese, points it out in the chat that there are no obligations here, guys. There's no contracts. The only contracts that are in place are if Juice Wells, if any player, the only contracts in place are if a player does a deal with a business. Hey, you're going to do X for me. Maybe that's advertising. Maybe that's promotion. Whatever it might be. You're going to do an appearance, an event. You're going to do X for me. I'm going to give you Y, which is money. That's going to be the exchange of services. If you don't follow through on that, the contract's null and void. There is an agreement there. When you're talking about what the Garnet Trust is doing, what Carolina Rise is doing, what these entities, what these collectives are doing, guys, unless I have a misunderstanding, there's no contract saying, well, you got to play X amount of games, you got to get this many catches, this many yards, this many touchdowns, and if you don't, you got to give us that money back. Contract's null and void. You only get X percentage. There's none of that. There's none of that. You can't. You can't withhold balance here. What do you have in writing? I don't think you have anything in writing. And it's horrific business. It's horrific business. I mean, this is beyond This is beyond the South Carolina scope. So I want to make it very clear when I say this, because we have J.C. Sherburne on the show weekly. You know, I would never say anything bad about the collectives at South Carolina, but let's call it for what it is. A situation like the Juice Wells thing. It is a black eye on NIL. It is a black eye on the collective initiatives across college football, not just South Carolina. When it's all about giving and giving and giving and asking common fans to give more, to give more, to give more, you're fooling yourself if you think the Juice Wells thing does not hurt NIL initiatives. And that's the greatest shame of it all for South Carolina, is South Carolina has done so much good work with collectives and educating folks about NIL, and then the Juice Wells thing happens, and damn near all the progress they've made is out the window. Because people are sitting here saying, well, what about that money I invested? What about that money I donated to keep a guy like Juice Wells happy and in Columbia and at my school? What about that money? And again, this is happening across college football. Guys, I don't know how effective crowdsourcing and asking common fans to fuel these collectives and build your roster. I just don't know how effective that is. And some of you may say, get with the times. I understand, but I just don't know how effective that is. This Juice Wells thing is a black eye on NIL. There's no question. There's no question. When it comes to what the collectives are doing, asking common folk to invest money, sometimes money they don't even have. And they'll tell you, well, you got to go out and buy another player. So what, he can leave next year? I mean, it's the name of the game, guys. It's how you have to operate, but I feel for the people operating the collectives. I feel for the folks that are having to deal with this fallout. Not just at South Carolina, but across college football, because it's happening everywhere. It ain't just a South Carolina thing. It ain't just a Juice Wells thing. It's a college football thing. And you just have to hope that as the market corrects itself, as things even out, your school isn't one of those that suffers because of it. Let's see. Sieber, any news of KJ to South Carolina? I've not heard anything. Sieber, I'd imagine portal just opened today. All that movement will be taking place over the coming weeks, right? Jacob East, as much as I hate to say it, the NCAA, the government needs to step in and regulate all of this. Good luck. You're going to have a lot of people suing people. So, Texter says, what have you heard about Harbor? And right now, our biggest move is to replace Clayton White because the defense had talent, just bad schemes. Heard nothing on Nick Harbor. I don't think there should be any concern. I think they've got him pretty secured when it comes to Nick Harbor, right? And then Clayton White, yeah, I mean, I think South Carolina should make a change for sure. No doubt. Jacob E. Definitely can't ask a fan base for more money after a 5-7 season. At the same time, they're going to tell you, Jacob, the only way to improve on 5-7 is to donate more and go get good players. I mean, that's the conundrum they're in. The Gamecocks just went 5-7 and just lost Juice Wells to the portal after he did not play all year and collected a bag. And now the challenge the collective folks have is they're going to come to you and say, well, guys, the only way we can get better, the only way we can get players, the only way we can improve, you got to spend more. And we got to go get more players. Listen, if you hate where college football is right now, if you are a fan and you hate where the sport is, I don't blame you. And guys, here's another secret. Many of the folks operating these collectives across college football, guess what? They hate where it is too. But what choice do they have? What choice do you have? Either adapt or die. Either get with the times or die. Either spend or get left behind. But I don't blame you if you hate college football right now. I don't blame you if you hate that side of it. Guys, that being said, let's jump into a quick break. On the side, we'll close out the show in style here on this Monday, December the 4th. All that and more on this side of this break. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home. Call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie Ho.
All right, guys, are back. Final 10 minutes or so here in the Daily Crow, taking your questions, comments, voicemails, 843-790-337. Some of guys mentioned this top of the show. Stay tuned for updates. This is going to be kind of a crazy month, obviously, with Christmas upcoming. There's going to be some travel, going to see some family in the middle of the month, and bowl game madness, obviously, stuff like that, but tons of content coming your way. But in regards to the live show, things could be affected here and there, right, because of some of the things that we have going on. So just want to make sure you guys know there could be some changes in the schedule. Also, there's some exciting things coming up later in the month. I'll just leave it at that. And definitely some things that you guys are going to want to pay attention to. I'll just leave it at that. Again, appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Final 10 minutes, like I said, taking your questions, comments, voicemails. M. Colt says, salary caps or collective bargaining have to be implemented. The NIL business model is a joke. Just handing these athletes money without a contractual obligation. Can I say that? Contractual obligation to play is mind-blowing to me. It just, let me say this, guys. And I guess nobody really asked me, but we're all talking about the collectives. Again, I would never encourage anyone to not give to a collective, right? I mean, again, we have J.C. Sherbert on weekly, operates the Carolina Rise. I know for a fact what they're doing behind closed doors. They're helping athletes at South Carolina. I would highly suggest you give to that. Even though the Garnet Trust, their people have been dickheads to me behind closed doors and dickheads to me publicly on social media, I would not encourage you or discourage you from giving to them. So, whatever the channels are, by all means, give, support, do your thing. I'm going to tell you this right now, though. Do with this information what you will. I would tell any college fan this, and I would give this as feedback more so to the collectives. Like, you're just going to have a hard time convincing people to give when there's nothing in writing. Like, it's just, and I'm surprised, guys, honestly, and I hate to say this. I would never do this. Most people probably never would, but I'm surprised there haven't been like money laundering schemes or schemes. I mean, do you know how easy it'd be for somebody to go make a Texas A&M website or a Tennessee website, just any website, and be like, this is the Aggie Collective. Yeah, we're giving money to athletes. We're not going to tell you where the money's going, how we're spending it. We're not going to show you any numbers. We're going to show you no figures at all. But trust me, bro. Like, I mean, I'm not saying people are doing that, obviously. But, like, what I'm saying is, until there's more transparency in the process, it's just going to be difficult, man. Like, it's just going to be an uphill battle. It's just going to be an uphill battle, man. It is. Talking about the common fans, man. Like, common fans ain't got the money to give to nothing. You know what I mean? So I'm happy I'm not in the space, guys, admittedly. I mean, we've done some NIL stuff with partnering on merchandise and stuff like that, but I'm admittedly, man, I'm really happy I'm not the head of a collective. I'm happy I'm not in J.C. Sherbert's shoes. I'm very, very happy that I'm not dealing with that. I'm very happy that I don't deal with that. So, yeah. Let's see. Georgia quarterback Brock Vandagriff is entering the transfer portal. Vandagriff was a 5-star recruit in the 2021 class. That'd be a big one. That'd be a big pickup. Just for anybody. I'm not talking South Carolina. That's a big prospect out there. Gunnar Stockton, still at Georgia. I think Stockton will stay, man. I think he's a dog through and through. We actually got a DM here. And this comes from our guy over at Ole Miss. Okay. But he asked me the question, what exactly is Juice Wells' plan? Guys, the early indication is that Juice Wells to Texas might be the reality. Somebody asked earlier about Mario Anderson. Guys, it's nothing official. The rumors are right now NFL draft for Mario Anderson, or at least trying his hand at pro football, which if he does that, guys, like I get it from the standpoint of running back shelf lives they're short. I totally understand it. I totally get it. So that is the, and it was Bruce that asked. Bruce asked, Mario Anderson coming back. I'm not 100% on that. I would probably say right now, no. Right now, I'd say no. Kathy W. says there should be a rule where the 4 playoff teams cannot accept transfers for that year. My goodness, we're getting into like NFL draft. And I mean, Kathy, good luck with that one. Good luck. Good luck with that one. Best of luck. Best of luck, truly. By the way, guys, quick update for you. I haven't even posted this to social media yet. Really excited, guys. So on Mondays, I join Mark Ryan every Monday. Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate at 4:40. I will actually be joining Mark Ryan of the Fan Upstate in person, in studio today at 4:40. So those of you who tune in via YouTube, you're going to see yours truly. Going to be a lot of fun. You know, we had talked about this for a while, me coming by the studio, doing it in person. You know, obviously I'm in the upstate. I'm pretty close to where they are. So looking forward to that, guys. Check it out. 4:40 today. I'll jump on with Mark Ryan at the Fan Upstate. Going to be a really good time. Let's see. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Jacob E. says, any reason that Mitch Jeter hit the portal? Jacob E., when it comes to Mitch Jeter, from what I heard, he is a graduate. From what I heard, South Carolina does not offer what he is majoring in or wants to pursue, I guess. So early rumors, Mitch, believe it or not, is that he's going to head to Alabama. Jeff Gullidge, Mark Ryan is with the Fan Upstate. They are an affiliate of CBS. It's a CBS sports radio station. Let's see. Bruce, you like our chances against Clemson in basketball? I think it's going to be a great game. I think that game, and again, we'll talk about it a lot more, Bruce, on Wednesday. Maybe we'll start talking about it tomorrow. Who knows? But I think that's going to be a great game from the standpoint of, and fairly or unfairly, right? Fairly or unfairly, we're going to find out what South Carolina is. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to find out who they really are. Okay? We're going to find out who they really are. And fairly or unfairly, folks are going to judge what South Carolina is off of that Clemson game. Clemson now in the top 25. I think the Tigers via ESPN Analytics have an 80% chance to win the game, which seems high. But, again, guys, it's just, I know Gamecock fans. I know Gamecock fans want respect. Hey, you want respect? Great chance to earn it. South Carolina hasn't played a true road game yet this season. I think Clemson, 4 of their 7 wins have been on the road. I think that's why they're getting a lot of benefit out. You can prove a lot on Wednesday night. That's all I'll say. You can prove a lot. Guys, again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live, when we drop new video content as well. Also, check us out iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check us out at the Spurs Up Show. And of course, guys, stay tuned on social media, all across social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, we are there. Guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.